Okay, hey, this is Paul, here to show you what's new in SixSines 1.2. I'm really excited about. You may hear a little background noise behind me. There's some helicopters, I think, because of the World Cup here in New York City. And you might hear them from the windows of the studio where I'm recording this now. Anyway, look, SixSines 1.2, a big change, reworked UI, a whole new modulator layout, super macros, new source types, including phase distortion and noise, output stage to allow you to model older sounding synths, and a bunch of really exciting stuff. So let me walk you through it. So first of all, as you can see, the UI, if you use SixSines 1.0 or 1.1, has changed to be sideways. It's very exciting. And sideways means that we get a lot more room here for the edit pane. But the basic idea is still the same. You select a node, and then you get a control for that node. You'll notice up here the sources as well have gone to this alternate display, a sort of segmented display, which is quite helpful if you want to set things exactly. But if you want, you can always go back to the old knob here by choosing knob, but I'm going to leave it that way now. So great. And as well as having this new space for our layout, and we'll get back to that content soon, we have VU meters for each output stage. So if I pull on output 2 here and set this to 2, you can see that. We also have an analyzer. Go here, click Analyzer. It'll pop up a separate window. Let me just drag that in. That gives us a waveform, a spectrum, so on and so forth. So if I go here and turn on the feedback, you can see that adding both the waveform change and let me play single note waveform change and the spectrum change as we go. So that's very helpful. And a few other tiny things. We've added an author field to patches, so you can set the author field. This basically the surface changes to the UI. But the excitement really starts happening when you take a look at what we've done with the modulation subsystem. And it's pretty cool in a couple of ways. First of all, each node, and you remember these nodes have internal modulator. Each one of these knobs has associated with it an envelope and an LFO. Those LFOs can now get a step sequencer. Let me set this to a six-step sequencer, and I encourage you to say that fast 3 times on a video that you're recording. And now if I go ahead and turn that to make the feedback depth go like this. Okay, that depth isn't that high, so let me turn the depth up, turn the rate up. Cool. And this is the same as the short circuit step sequencer, so I can either set rate in hertz for a step, or I can set the rate for the entire cycle. And that's pretty handy. We can, of course, do all the other things we always did. We can multiply it by the envelope. So if I put a nice delay on this, turn that depth up, put this to down there, and then take the sustain down, delay up, attack up, give it a hold. Now we'll get, if I multiply by the envelope, I mean. So you can get an effect like that across. So this is available for every LFO. You'll notice also for an amplitude-like thing, we have this option add, scale, or attenuate. And what this means right now, the LFO by default adds. So if I have 0 and I get this, I add. But I can instead scale. Let me turn off the envelope. And now I'm going to get nothing. I'm going to get nothing because we're scaling a signal of size 0. So if instead, gives you an opportunity to pick how much of the bass that you're modulating against. Okay, that's great. So let me turn this down, put this back to add. So you can experiment with each of these as you go. The other thing we've done that's exciting, let me reset to init here. The other thing we've done that's exciting is we've taken the macros, which kind of weren't all that useful in SixSines 1.1 and 1.0, and we've expanded them greatly. And we've expanded them in a couple of ways. First of all, you can rename the macro. So I can make this, Frank or whatever. Great. So that macro is named Frank. But also, if I turn the macro's power on, then each macro similarly gets an LFO and an envelope. And this is useful because now I can use this macro, and let me just put this to a simple ramp going at 4 hertz or whatever. This macro doesn't affect anything now, but if I go over here to op1, I can go to macros, macro 1 modulated, I can send that to the feedback level and turn it up. And that should be turning my feedback level up. What have I missed here? Macro 1 modulated, depth, add. Oh, sorry, I need to turn on the feedback, of course. And so now that's cool, but the reason that's useful is because I can also use it on other things. So for instance, I can put on op2 here, turn it up right now. And I can go to the op2 level, macro 1 modulated, and to amplitude. Ta-da. Make this a... And I can share that modulator between things. And the nice thing is if I go back here to the control screen for the macro, I can see what's being modulated and I can go ahead and grab that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And there's also some new targets and sources. We have some more MPE targets, and that's very useful. And then the final thing we've added that's super useful is each of the envelopes can be tempo synced. And if you tempo sync the envelopes, then instead of getting times, you get parts of the note that match the tempo of your DAW. So that's very handy. And that's just like the tempo sync on the LFO, which is now activated by this widget up here. Okay, so that seems like an awful lot, but that's really not the biggest change, believe it or not. There's a bigger change that's pretty exciting, which is what we've added in the sources. So let me go back to init here. And as you'll remember, each one of these sources had a variety of waveforms associated with it. So this is SixSines 1.0 and 1.1 had all these features. But we've added to the sources this extended mode here. And this extended mode gives us three things we can do. A phase map, which is sort of the first, reminiscent of the first four modes of a Casio CZ. Resonance sweep, which is kind of reminiscent of the next three. A noise, which is reminiscent of the last, but pretty substantially expanded over what the CZ had. So let me talk about each one of those a little bit. And since these are a little tricky, I've added some visualizations for them as well. So let's go to phase map. And essentially what phase map is doing is it is allowing you to take the single linear phase and warp it with this control M. So you can see with this control M, what's happening is I'm accelerating the first half of the phase and decelerating the last half of the phase. So it's warping my sine wave here into a different wave here. Great. So, and if I listen to that, you know. Okay, so that's cool. But also, just like everything else, I can modulate it. So let me set up an envelope here with a, you know, a reasonable attack and a reasonable decay, and then move the envelope to that. So that's handy. And we don't only have the simple saw, we also have a variety of other patterns, which as you can see, kind of give you this, or move you to a pulse, right? And each of these patterns has their own deformation that they apply to the waveform. Some of these are in the CZ, some of them are not. So here's sine to saw. And again, modulatable by the envelope and LFO. Phase map isn't the only type of phase remapping we introduced, though. There's also this resonance sweep. And resonance sweep's a little bit different than phase map, because what you're doing is instead of changing the phase, what you're doing is taking the underlying waveform and playing it more quickly inside a unit phase envelope. Well, what does that actually mean? Okay, so let's take M here. And you can see as I increase M, I get more things inside this little triangular envelope that happens per cycle. So this is 2 cycles of the wave here. And we have these different forms. So now you can see I'm making a waveform that looks like this. And again, that's modulatable. And the reason this is called resonance sweep is because it allows you to do things that, frankly, are like a resonant filter sweep. Right? If I go ahead and have this and then take the attack down. Cool. And so, you know, you can imagine that working in different ways. And, you know, you can explore each of these envelopes. You can explore different depths of modulation. Right. So now you can start getting, I'm just going to turn to the keyboard for a second, you know. That's a sound that was actually quite hard to get with SixSines 1.0. That sound wasn't that great, I'll admit, but you can kind of get the idea. And of course, the last thing to remember is each of these modes matches the waveform that you choose. So I don't just do it on a sine wave, but if I want, I can do it on this. Right, now we're getting into pretty ugly. Let me turn this down a little. Right. Cool. And again, that goes through the same signal path as ever. So if I take operator 1, which is now this crazy sound, and turn its output off, so I get nothing, turn on operator 3, I can use that phase distorted thing to modulate operator 3. And now we're starting to get some very interesting effects. Cool. The last thing that we've put, and let me turn this back off, turn that off, turn this back on. So go back here. Now we're just listening to a single operator as well. Oh, and one of the things you can obviously see is this has made operators substantially more powerful. Last thing we have is noise. Look, everyone asked for noise in a SixSines 10111, and I said no because you can do it with feedback, and then made everyone crank the feedback up and added feedback overdrive. I felt pretty good about that from a sort of, aesthetics and minimalism perspective, although nothing about this synth is minimalist. But I decided to add noise anyway. And so we have a couple of types of noise. A noise acts in a couple of ways. You can add to the phase, like we're doing here. You can add to the signal. It's a straight mix. You can mix the noise. Okay? And then the control chooses noise versus signal. Or you can multiply by the signal. So the signal being at 0 will add no noise there. You can see we're just noising up the peaks here. Multiply by the unipolar signal. So now the asymmetric application of the noise, which can be quite interesting. But what I'm going to do for a second is I'm going to go back to mix and set the mix to this. Because we also have several noise types: pink, white, tilt, and tilt noise adds this extra control for coloring. And then finally, chip LFSR, which is very interesting. You can key track or not. So now we start getting some, if I especially put this into key track mode, or, take the... Now that sort of chip-based, very digital-sounding noise, pretty hard to listen to, but again, if you start applying it here as a modulation source, you can get interesting stuff. So that's what we've done with those. Okay, let me go back to init again. The final big thing we've added is some modeling on the output stage. So if we go out here, you can see there's a section here of the UI for the output stage. And you have two options when you're grappling with this. You can either understand the signal path in detail, or you can just screw around with it and see what you like to hear. But it was really meant to make it so you can get some older sound. So let me just model up a quick sound here. And then add a, do that. Bring this up. And then go ahead and make this a subharmonic. Send this here. Right, so there's like a very FME sound I just quickly modeled with nothing much interesting. I can modulation, whatever. But if I go back to the settings screen here, what I can start doing is I can add filters to the signal path, but not filters that are musical filters or per note, sort of emulating a couple of things. We can add some saturation. If I go ahead and add saturation and then take the output down, start adding some warmth. But you can also basically run an internal clock doing zero order holds at different rates, but this still runs at the high sample rate. So this is a little weird. I'm doing a 12 kilohertz zero order hold at 110 kilohertz or 120 kilohertz because I'm running at 48, and then bringing it back down to 48. So you can go ahead and reduce the bit depth. And then when you're doing that, you can add low pass and high pass filters. So if I go ahead and add a 20 hertz low pass filter, with this, I can start making signal paths to give it a little bit of warmth, a little bit of grit, and a little bit of antique sound to the synth to take some of that digital edge off. And that's about it. Oh, look, there's one thing I forgot in the UI section as well. You can edit all the colors yourself if you want. So pull up this color editor, and then you can go ahead and change, the knobs all to green. And that's exciting. People really like green more than orange, it seems. Anyway, that's what's new in SixSines 1.2. Hope you enjoy it. Releasing July 10th. And there you go. Have fun making music with FM, phase distortion, and the other madness.